Welcome to or welcome back to Laurie's Little Studio. I'm Laurie, and today I have this in front of me. This is Series 2 of the Folkwear 203 Edwardian Underthings pattern. We are doing the camisole and petticoat. As you can see, I have massive chaos, which that's the way I work. I've already cut out the camisole back and the camisole front, and I need to discuss these two things because they're, for obvious reasons, different, and there's another non-obvious reason that we need to talk about it. Within this pattern, you have the option for a size extra small all the way up to size 3XL. This pattern right here, this one that we're looking at, is for extra small, small, medium, and large. And the remaining sizes are in here. The back, however, is for all of those sizes. Extra small all the way up to 3XL. I've not cut out the size that I'm going to be using yet. I just trimmed it away from the main part of the pattern paper. And then I went off into Etsy land to look for a couple more pieces of lace. I have most of the lace I'm going to need, but Joanne did not have, Joanne Fabrics, or I think it's now Joanne Crafts. I'm not 100% sure. I'll put the real name up here. But anyway, they didn't have the insertion lace that I was interested in, so I didn't even bother. I mean, I kind of did a glance of all the rows of laces, and they just did not have what I was looking for. So we did get the ribbon. I went with my daughter, the Candace I'm making these two items for, and she chose this one for one of the laces across the bottom of the petticoat, which I think is absolutely appropriate, and it's pretty, and due to the fact that it's already been gathered, it will definitely be a time saver. It's cotton. The fabric has shipped for the petticoat. I don't have enough of the petticoat batiste here for that petticoat, but I might use pieces of this or this, which I think you can tell when I turn this light off. There's a huge difference in the color. This is considered white, but it's not as bright white as this. And I'm going to use one of these or both of these to create the filled pintucks. There's also an area on the petticoat for folded tucks, so we'll do some of both on that, and I can use these pieces of fabric to create that look. So for the camisole, I'm going to be purchasing some white insertion lace. Sometimes you can look at lace and think you're looking at insertion, but you're not. Right, this is an edging. It's not insertion. So I won't be using this for the camisole insertion. This is also a piece of edging. I've got tons of entredeaux laying about. This is the beaded lace, which we could use honestly as an insertion if we wanted to. And then this is also an edging. I don't think there's enough of it to do much of anything. This lace right here will be going around the neck edge and the armhole edges. And the reason we chose this is because it's a soft crochet lace. And you really don't want something stiff and, scratchy. That would be so uncomfortable. Yeah, here's another piece of lace. I mean, I've just got lace everywhere, which is fun. I love having lace. And of course the buttons, if you did not see the first video, these are the buttons that I purchased. They are glass. And you need 4 of these buttons in a 1/2 inch size. I think it says 1/2 inch in the pattern. I'll go back and check when we start. But it doesn't really matter because you can do buttonholes the size that you want to do the buttonholes. But I just thought these were absolutely fantastic. And they, once again, the light. There we go. I mean, they just shimmer beautifully. So we'll be using these, and I think I'm going to put them back in the envelope that they came in, because when you live in the chaos that is my 45 by 22 inch space here, you do tend to watch out for the chaos. Because this is to be used with this pattern, this is another part of how I try to stay as organized as possible in the very beginning. I'm going to use this big zipper envelope to store the buttons, the ribbon. Ribbon has a bad habit of disappearing in my little studio. And I know it'll just slip right down in there. And the pearl cotton that I will be using for those filled pin tucks will also go in here. Alright, so this is the fabric. I've already washed this fabric, so it has been pre-washed. It's ready to be cut out. Once I get this pattern completely cut out, I need to reinstall my throat plate. See, I'm going to check the temperature and just see what it is. What has that got to do with sewing? Hardly anything. Okay, so in Mukilteo, Washington, right now it says the temperature is 64, but it currently feels like 62. Wow, this is just not my idea of summer. I'm not going to complain. Things could be so much worse. I'm just fine. Okay, I'm back and I'm going to start working on getting these pattern pieces cut down to the appropriate size. I did mention in the last video that I'm not planning to trace. I just don't think I need to do that. This is probably the only time I will make this. But if I make it again, I'm likely going to be making it for Candace again. So I'm not too concerned about preserving all of the other sizes. All right, so now for Candace, I want my measuring tape. This is the front. And you're going to see you have extra small to large over here. So the size that we were quoted on the back of the pattern would be the medium, but I want to make sure. I'm going to measure using inches. Half-inch seam allowances, it will tell you right on the pattern right here. Each pattern piece will say a 1/2 inch or 13 millimeter seam allowance for all sizes. I have a selection of cutting implements here. I do not use this pair of Kai scissors. This is the 5230, and I do not use these for paper. I only use these for pretty much for fabric. I prefer to stick with organic fabrics for this pair of scissors. These I will definitely cut paper. These I prefer to save for fabric. They're really sharp, little, get into the little tiny details scissors. And I don't know what the brand is. It was part of a kit that I got for Christmas. And there's no marking that I am aware of. But the entire kit was available on Amazon in a wood box. Now this I will probably use on pattern paper and fabric, and when this little blade gets dull I will replace it. Okay. Now I'm kind of reading the pattern. I want to make sure that I'm looking at everything I need to see. This right here is where the lace insertion would go. Alright, so to make this easier for you guys to see, I'm just going to have this with this paper behind it. This over here is where you will be doing your fold lines. This where the center front is. We've got buttonhole marks here. This is a piece of lace insertion right here. This is where we have some pin tucks, another piece of lace insertion, and pin tucks. All of this can be absolutely tailored to your preference. However you choose to do that is absolutely up to you. But it does give you markings for these pin tucks. And you don't cut this, you just mark where the large, medium, small, and extra small dots are located. And the same thing is true with your insertion. You will be going with this piece right here, and wherever this point ends is where your lace insertion would end. Now I also realize that they have this at a point. You could just have it be straight across the bottom. Whatever is easiest or you prefer or is your skill level, whatever you decide that you think would be the best to do. You can round it off, you can make it a point, or you can just leave it off altogether. This is where the casing is, right here. So you will create a casing, and the front part does have a gathered casing. Let me get this where you can see it. So starting here, you will start to gather that to here. So there'll be a little bit of gathering, a little bit of gathering, and you'll still have the casing created here. And then this is not the casing, it's just a gathering line. So right across here, and you could highlight that if you wanted to. You could use a marker. I'm going to see if I've got something, maybe this white gel I can use. I'm just going to kind of draw a circle around it, so right there. So this is the actual casing where you will be threading ribbon through. This down here under it is just simply gathers. And that goes from here to this dot right there. I'm not sure what's happening outside. I just know there's a lot of noise. I apologize for that. It's the neighbor across the street. Okay, so then we have a lengthen or shorten line right here. I'm not going to change the length. I'm not going to make it shorter, and I'm not going to make it longer. But the way you do that is you would cut across this line, add however many inches you need to add, and then tape it back together with a piece of paper in between. Or if you need to shorten it, you can cut across there if you want to, or you can fold it up from that line to an inch or whatever you need. I would definitely make measurements if you're trying to shorten it. All right, and I think that's it. All I need to do is trim it up. So what we're going to do when you get into these areas where these cutting lines sort of cross over each other, just simply look for whatever the line looks like for medium. It is the long dash line. There is a long dash, short, short, long, short, short for extra small. Small is a whole series of little short lines. Medium is a series of long lines. But what I'm looking for, I want to be very careful and make sure that, especially in areas that might be critical, like around the neckline and under the arm, I want to make sure that I'm following the correct line, which for me, it's right here. I don't want to do it, I'm trying to cut where I have the line where I can see the line. If I'm cutting this direction, then the line is this way and I'm able to see it. If I'm going this direction, my hand and this device are both in the way of that line and I can't see it as clearly. So that's why I'm going to flip this around and cut from this side. It sounds like a little mouse, doesn't it? Isn't that weird? This piece will be placed on the fold along the folded edge of the fabric. So when we're done cutting it out, we'll open it up and it will be one piece, not two. Here's where the casing goes for the waist. And there are dots that tell you the gathering lines. And they are inside of the casing lines. I don't see any other marks. Okay, we're good to go. I think I'm going to use my scissors this time. See if that's a better option. Now, one tip I can give you is that if you don't, like when you're pulling away the pieces you don't need, try not to crumple them up. Just put them in your waste can, or if you're saving this type of paper, wherever you're putting it, just don't crumple it up, because if you need it to fix a repair, you'll have little pieces of this that haven't been, oh, I've got plenty, that haven't been, and then you have to smooth this out and take it over to the ironing board, just get it all smooth, and then use it, you know, to patch a broken, torn spot on your pattern. So try not to crumple them up. And they make great fixer paper for your patterns if you need that. Alright, so we have the back section cut out. The petticoat fabric arrived yesterday. Look at this envelope. I mean, this is serious damage. There's this. This was just like that when it was delivered. It feels like at some point it got wet. So while I do appreciate that it was sent priority from Alabama, it's lucky that it was wrapped in this plastic. I can't even imagine. This fabric is lovely. It's Imperial Batiste by Speckler Vogel, and I would have hated it. Oh, I didn't even know that she got me a little gift. How sweet. This is her card, her Etsy shop. And she included a seam ripper, which actually I needed. So, Sandra Applin, if you're watching, thank you. Oh, sorry about Bama. He's spotted something walking in front of our house. Now that this fabric has arrived, I will wash it in the washing machine, dry it in the dryer, and it will be ready to make the petticoat. I want to treat this fabric prior to cutting it out the way it will be treated when it's made into the garment. Like this. This has already been washed and dried and is ready to go. This fabric is 60 inches wide. This will be my cutting layout. The Camisole 60-inch wide fabric, extra small to large. So my sizes fall within this range right here. Both of the pattern pieces are face up. All right, so this is supposed to be placed on the fold. And this is the line that tells you to place it on the fold right here. And the way for me to do that is to turn it this way because, of course, the fold is way up here. Now I have straightened my fabric. That took place a long time ago after I bought the fabric. So I know it's straight. Just love 60-inch wide fabric. It's awesome. All right, I'm going to pin these down. That's just going to be kind of a chaotic mess. So I'll do that off camera, and then we'll cut these out. We'll transfer markings. And I'm not sure if I mentioned this yesterday. It might not have even happened when I was filming yesterday. I ordered a whole bunch of lace, just a whole bunch of lace yesterday. And from it, I should be able to choose some lace insertion pieces. And also, I wanted to point out that I ordered twill tape to use as the drawstring. I prefer that over a slippery ribbon. I think it tends to stay in place better. All right, so I will be back after I have gotten these two pieces cut out of the fabric. I thought I could do this, but I can't. I cannot cut this out with it being all wrinkled like this. So I am going to press it, but I'm going to avoid the folded. I'm not going to press on the fold section there. That tends to leave a crease, and I don't know that I would want that. So that's going to take me a minute, and I will add some starch. That makes it so much easier to sew when the pieces have a little bit of starch added. So that's going to be a separate step. So I'm going to the way I do starch is I add it to the fabric and then I let it sit for a few minutes. Just spray the whole thing, saturate it down, let it sit for a few minutes to soak into the fabric fibers. Then I will press it and then I will cut it out. This is the type of starch that I use. I like to go for the heavy finish. And Faultless brand, I'm not affiliated with them, it's just what I happen to prefer to buy. I like the way it smells. You know, some people get real excited about a new bottle of perfume. This is my favorite thing right here. The smell of Faultless. So anyway, I spray it on, let it sit, iron it, and it's just perfect for adding enough body to the fabric to kind of help give you some oomph as you're trying to sew. Alright, both pieces have been cut out. We have two front sections and one on the fold back section. I have not marked these yet, but they do need to be marked. So as you can see, this lace has arrived. It's very interesting because this piece right here is weird. It's supposed to be white. Well, 2 minutes later, I had another package delivered. Ta-da! This lace is a lot wider than I thought it was, but you know what? That's a great thing about insertion. And yay, tomorrow I will begin sewing. The reason I'm not today is because it is late. It is almost 5 o'clock p.m. But this is so pretty. Oh my goodness, what's it attached with? Glue? Yep. Wow, that's lovely. So here's the great thing about insertion lace, and let me bring. So we have this edge on both sides. It's flat, and there's a flat edge here, and there's a flat edge here. So what we can do, and this I think is like, it's 5 yards. I don't need anything like 5 yards. But what we can do is we can cut, and we will end up with a piece of lace that looks like this, which is quite pretty. Or faux hem stitch. If you want to use the center piece, which I think is quite pretty, then you would cut here, oops, and here, and then you have this as a piece of insertion lace. And with something like this, I would add entredeux like so. And then, so that there would be entredeux to the lace and then entredeux to the blue fabric. So that's definitely something that you can do. Now, in all honesty, I could leave it this wide if I felt like I could do that, but then I wouldn't want to do too much of anything else. And I feel like this is just a bit too wide. But I'm not mad about it because I do like all of the options. I think this is really pretty. I'm just not sure. Yes, it's just not quite wide enough for this. But then again, I can make this, I could literally do this as wide or as narrow as I want to do it. So I will have to have a conversation with Candace and see, you know, how she feels. She may want to wait for the lace that is coming from the UK. And then again, she may be taken with this. The only other thing about this lace is it said white and it looked white, but it is quite clearly ecru, and I'll show you what I mean. I don't know if that's going to work. I talk to myself so much in this room. Here, we'll just take it out of the plastic. There we go. So you can see very clearly that it is, does this help or hurt? That hurts. Okay. All right, so this is the new lace, which, gosh, oh golly, I like it. But this is white lace right here. So we can see I think that there is a very clear color issue. I'm very anxious to start sewing. I haven't had my hands on my sewing machine lately and it's starting to bother me. So no matter what happens between now and tomorrow, I'll meet you back here at that time. Okay, I'm back, and the Etsy shop lace has not arrived yet, but I think we're going to go ahead and get started today. I did want to talk about some other items that you might need or want for this project. One of those items is a wing needle. I might do some wing needle machine embroidery. This is the part that goes into the sewing machine, and this down here is the part that goes into the fabric. So you might want a wing needle there. The other thing that I'm going to need for my sewing machine is a twin needle. Okay. So this is the twin needle that I plan to use. It's a 2.0/80 Schmetz twin needle. And in order to use a twin needle, you will need 2 posts for needle thread. So if you don't have 2 posts, there are a lot of videos online that tell you how to sort of create one yourself, a DIY twin needle extra post. A lot of sewing machine shops sell those, and I think they work with most sewing machines because they are not attached to your sewing machine. They just are kind of a standalone on the table behind your sewing machine rig that you can get or make yourself. Alright. This is a bodkin, and if you do not have a bodkin, you can use a very large safety pin in place. As you can see, this has an opening right here, and that's where you thread your ribbon, or in my case it will be twill tape, and pull it through the casing on both the bodice and the skirt. All right. I also have several pairs of cutting implements. These are for my fabric. This is a set of Kai N5230 that I bought at a sewing machine shop. They are available on Amazon, and I think Kai also has a website where you can purchase these scissors. This particular scissor is around $35, which I paid for mine, of course. The company is KAI, and they are made in Japan. And then I have some small scissors. This will help me if I need to cut in a small area, if I need to cut into the fabric, or if I need to cut thread, whatever I need to do, I use those. This pair of scissors I use for everything but fabric. It is the scissor-tailed brand that I bought on Amazon. They were so good. When I first got them, I loved them very much, and then the piece that holds the blades together just decided to start falling apart, and my husband helped me with some fixative of some sort. I don't know what it was, but now they stay together. But I don't use them on fabric anymore because the blades are really rough. So, but they lasted a good long while, probably a couple years. I've had these, let's see, when we were in lockdown, no, when we could go out but we had to wear our masks. So it was probably the last year when everything kind of fell off the rails. And so what has that been now? Three years? Maybe? And they're just as good today as they were when I bought them. I have a tiny rotary cutter. I bought this on Amazon. It is the Clover brand, and it is an 18 millimeter, which works really well for this type of area on your pattern when you're cutting that out. I might use this if I need to on lace, but at the moment I'm just going to leave it out in case I do need it. And these are those duckbill scissors that I showed you guys yesterday, which probably doesn't feel like yesterday to you, but they are for cutting out the fabric behind insertion lace. Okay, so I think the effect will be more dramatic on the white fabric, and I am going to switch out this black bobbin thread because I may want to remove it from this piece of white fabric that I have, and I don't want the black thread to bleed. So here is some white thread. Which direction am I pulling? Clockwise, okay. Okay, so I have loosened up my bobbin tension a little bit. And if you need information on how to do that, just drop a comment down below this video. So we now have white thread in our needle and in the bobbin. And I'm going to use this white fabric as close to the selvage as I can get without being on the selvage, because I do think I want to use this white fabric for a project. Okay, here we go. All right, so here's the back. I think you could use it on the front of a project because it's equally pretty. I think it would be really nice around a collar or a sleeve. I think it'd be beautiful. This is the other side, and I hope that you can see the shadow effect of the blue. I can see it, but I don't know how that's translating on the camera. We'll see what we're supposed to do first. So our very first instruction here is to press under the raw edge at center front 1/4 of an inch in. Just press under 1/4 of an inch. And then turn that under again on the fold line, which should be on that bodice piece. And then we're supposed to press it, pin it, and stitch it. So this is our fold line right here. We do need to mark that. I know I checked that pin yesterday, but I'm still just, I'm going to test it again just to make sure. Same fabric, everything is the same. If I just do a dash, 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 a dash. Okay, now it is air erasable, so it can take up to 72 hours for this to finally completely disappear. But if I need it to be gone before I walk over to the sewing machine to press, see, that's the problem. You cannot press this or it won't come out when you wash it. So this is the first fold line right here, that first 1/4 of an inch fold line. And I should have 2. Yeah, okay. So because I will be having to mark where these embellishments on this camisole front are supposed to be placed, I will have to preserve this pattern so that I can lay it back down with the knowledge, once I get this part right here sewn, folded, pinned, sewn, that this piece will have to hang off of what's left. So this will all have to be in perfect alignment where it is now, but my actual pattern fabric will be smaller by a 1/2 inch when I complete this step. So it will hang off like so by a 1/2 inch. Okay, so I'm looking to see what else I need to think about. I've got this marked. Where the casing will be placed for the gathering twill will also have to be marked, and I have buttonholes that I will need to mark. But for the moment, I'm going to unpin it, the whole thing, take both pieces over to the iron, and take care of the front little bit right here. The entire amount between the 1/4 of an inch back to that fold line is 1 solid inch. So when I get this folded under and pressed, I will then fold it back 3/4 of an inch to get it on this fold line right here. So I have to do that on both pieces. And I need to remove the pattern, but I have to keep it out so I can mark all the rest. There we go. Okay, so the sewing machine has been threaded. Now here's something to keep in mind. We have a right side and a left side. So with my fabric, I can get away with this. I don't have any specific information at a glance as to what is the right side and what is the wrong side of this fabric. But I do know that I need a front left and a front right. So I don't want both of these pieces folded under and stitched on the one on the wrong side and one on the right side. So I need to press under 1/4 of an inch along this front edge right here, and I just turned my iron on, so I will take it to the ironing board and take care of that. You can measure this if you want to, or if you're good at sort of guesstimating what 1/4 of an inch is, that's fine too. A lot of the sizing on this particular camisole will come from the drawstring, waist and around the neck drawstring or beaded lace ribbon. Okay, so just kind of fold that under, go to the ironing board, press, and we'll do the same thing on this one, making sure that my marking that says wrong side right there is face up so that I know to fold it this way and not the opposite. Okay, and then after I've done that, we'll fold it up to an inch, or I mean 3/4 of an inch right there, like so. And then after we've done that, we start doing the decorative stitches. So I'm going to take care of that and I'll be right back. Do remember, of course, not to hit anything you've marked with this pen with your iron. Okay, so a couple of things that I forgot to mention before I went over to the ironing board. When you're attempting to get this right here to fold down, press it while it's still flat. Get it warm. Wait a second, because your fingers will burn, and then fold it and do a finger press, and it'll just lay beautifully because the warmth of the fabric will hold it in place with a pure cotton. And then the same thing is true when you fold over the rest of that 3/4 of an inch. It will hold itself while you're ironing. The second thing I want to mention is when you're ironing this, just press, lift, press, lift, press, lift, press, lift. You do not want to do this. Because it could push it and twist your fabric, and if it does, it could leave a permanent mark, you know, one of those iron marks that you'll, whatever you do, you won't get out. So just press, lift, press, lift, press, lift, press, lift. Okay, now you can pin this if you feel like you need to pin it. It does say to. I think I'll be okay without. If you're not sure that you're supposed to do it to both because it's only showing one, it says on front pieces A. It's sometimes very easy to overlook that, so just double check if you're not sure. Okay, and if you were going to pin, I'll go ahead and show you. You would pin this way, like so, because as you stitch you can simply pull the pins out. A lot of excellent, I mean above my pay grade seamstresses will pin this way and pull the pins out as they go. I just find it easier to have them pull off to the side horizontally rather than vertically. But that's just me. Alrighty, so now I am going to, I want to stitch as close to the edge of this fold right here as I can, because I don't want this little flap to open. So I'm going to set this down. Let's see if I can zoom. Okay. So that this edge of the foot is along this edge of the fold. And then if I want to, I can move my needle. I don't know if you'll be able to see it move, but I'm going to move it over one tick to the left. There. And now it's as close to that folded edge as I feel comfortable getting it. My needle is in the needle down position, and I am stitching at a 2.5 stitch length. Alright, so there it is. And I will take this back to the machine, or I keep saying that. back to the iron to give it a press. I don't want to do anything else until I have had the opportunity to press it. All right, I am back. I've pressed my 2 pieces after stitching so that they're nice and flat. So our next instruction here tells us to begin with the tuck. Well, actually, transfer markings for the top and the bottom of the tuck lines. Hey everyone, I'm in the middle of editing the video, but I really did not like the way the section that I did on pin tucking came out. So I'm going to redo that. The garment has been pin tucked using the pearl cotton and a twin needle, but I wanted to show you how I accomplish the pin tucks, the filled F-I-L-L-E-D pin tucks that I'm doing for this particular garment. And I'm going to have to do it on scrap fabric because, like I said, the garment has already been done. And I was looking at the footage and I didn't like it. So I'm just going to redo it and just insert this little bit right here. And maybe it will inspire you or make something a little bit more clear. I don't know. But that's what I'm going to do. So let's get to it. So first of all, to do the pin tucks the way I'm going to do these, you must have a twin needle. Schmetz makes the twin needle that I'm using. It is a 2.0 80, and the flat piece, the flat part right here, goes toward the back of your machine when you're loading it into the needle post. You're also going to have to use 2 spools of thread. That doesn't mean that your sewing machine has to have 2 posts, because as I think I mentioned earlier in this video, you can use a freestanding purchase outside of your sewing machine. It just sits on the table behind your machine, piece of equipment that will hold a secondary spool of thread. All right, so you thread, at least for me anyway, I thread my needles, all of them, whether they're twin needles, wing needles, regular sewing needles, with the thread moving counterclockwise off of my machine, or if I were going to have to use a secondary post, then it would also thread off that way as well. So both of these will go that direction. I'm not liking this weird little loop-de-loop, but there's nothing I can do about it. Okay, so they both run off of their spools counterclockwise, and I'm going to thread both threads up to the needle part at the same time. And I'm putting a little bit of pressure and pulling it to really seat the thread into this section and the arm right here. And then we come down and we loop it through this little, let's see if I can get it to show up on the camera, this little hook right here. It's part of this needle post. So I hook it through there, and then I have both of my threads. Sorry about moving the camera. I did order a new glide gear piece that will go across the back and hopefully will catch some of this with my second camera that I call Little Monster. And we'll see. I hope that'll help some of this filming issue. But anyway, so I have my 2 threads. I have not threaded the needle yet. The reason I haven't threaded the needle yet is because I need to put the pearl cotton, if I can find it, oh, it's right here. So I need to thread the pearl cotton through the little tiny hole that is on this needle plate that I will show you. There's several ways, this little hole right here. So the easiest way to thread your pearl cotton through this little hole right here is to take this off and take out the bobbin. So you have all of that removed. I'm gonna find a way to tip this machine back. That's too much. Okay, I'm gonna use this my paint tray that I use when I'm painting with paint to tip this machine back and see if this will help. Let's see. Ooh, I'm thinking maybe. Okay, so we have our pearl cotton right here, and we need to thread it from underneath down here and up through to this part right here. Now this will ride around over here off to the side. Now that it's up through here, we can thread it through this hole. Now sometimes I can just leave this plate on and get it to thread up good, but if I don't want to spend a whole lot of time trying to get it through that hole, I just don't mess around like that. Okay, now check and see it's moving very freely, which you want. Okay, excellent. And then we need to put the bobbin back in, like so. And don't forget to raise those feed dogs. So for me, that's just a simple, and then my feed dogs are raised, they're in the right place. And you'll notice I don't have a foot on my machine right now. And that is because I am going to be using a special pin tucking foot. Okay. Now remember, this sewing machine does not have a self-threading option, so I'll need to thread these needles and get that taken care of. That's what I'm going to do next. I am going to trim each of these threads at an angle, and I think we've talked about that in my videos before, where I just take scissors and instead of cutting this way, I cut at an angle so that the thread, while you really can't visually see that, it is cut at a little sharp angle. I am not going to wet the end of the thread. I'm just going to pop it right through. And you guys, I have pretty poor vision, so to me it's not really a matter of vision, it's a matter of just taking aim and going for it. Now if you're in a room that is full of static, sometimes it takes a minute and you can just run your finger down the needle, remove some of that static, and you're good to go. Alright, now I need to pull my bobbin thread up, and none of this, the bobbin thread or the needles, none of those actions should have anything to do with this. There should be no interference by this at all between the bobbin and the needles. This is just freely off by itself. Okay, now I can close this, and I let this kind of ride in that little thumb indentation right here on my machine, right here, and it just kind of lets it just makes it easy to I don't know, thread it through. So there's that. All right, and then for the foot, Alright, the foot that I use the most when I'm sewing is this one, my 0, sort of an everyday sewing foot. And occasionally I will use foot 6, but it's just not, it's not one of my favorite feet. It just happens to work with some of the decorative stitches that I do on my sewing machine, which are not very fancy. And I mean, I'm being very honest about what the Bernina 1080 Special can do. It does have some nice built-in pretty decorative stitches, but they are not at all what's available out there now. Of course, I'm not willing to spend what I would have to spend to get a true embroidery machine. So these are fine for me. So for pintucks, I use the number 31 foot. That is right there. And as you can see, this is white with black numbers. And that is what I use for George, my sewing machine. The bottom looks like this, which is perfect for the pintucks that I plan to use. If you don't move the foot off of these lines, you can just do a pintuck and then let that pintuck ride in one of these grooves and do the next row and then move it over and just keep going, and it's a great little foot for that. These particular pintucks are not, there's not a whole bunch of them spaced like that, so it would be for just one individual pintuck, which let me grab those real quick and show you. So you can see they're not spaced the way the foot is spaced. They're just sort of spaced at, what is that? About 1/2 inch. So, and they are filled. Got a little thread right there I need to cut. What did I do with those little scissors? There they are. Now another thing that I like to do for pintucks, you don't want a forever stabilizer behind them. It's supposed to be a delicate embroidery type embellishment. So I'm not going to use a stabilizer that would never wash away, or I don't know, tear away. I don't even want to use a tear away. I don't want that weight behind my filled pintucks. So in that case, the only thing I'm going to use is starch. And this fabric, while it does have this weird crease in it, it has been starched. This fabric right here, which weirdly, I cut this out when I was cutting out the camisole, and they end up looking like a pocket, like you're about to make a little pocket. But I wanted to show you how to do these pintucks. So we need to mark where they're going to go. And what I did is I took my air erase pen and I marked the spot at the top using the pattern piece. I just used it, this is the back, but where the pintuck is, I just took my pen and made a small mark here, and then all the way to where the pintuck ends, because they do have specifics about, as like one pintuck will be this long, let's say right here, and the next one would be right here. I don't know if you can tell, but they're not perfectly lined up. So you'd have one come down, and then one would come down just slightly above where that one came down and ended. So what I do next is I line up where my first mark is. So right here, I put this right underneath the presser foot where I can see it. I put my machine in a straight stitch, 2.5 stitch length needle down, and I start slowly okay, and then I'm going to back up a couple stitches, 1, 2, and I'm done. So pull this through, carefully trim off my thread, and like magic I have a filled beautiful pin tuck. So let's do one more. And you can use any color of pearl cotton that you want to use. I'm using blue because I like the way it shows through, and I'll be using it on the petticoat, which will be made in white fabric, so it will definitely shadow through on that. Okay, now make sure that the pearl cotton is directly behind where you're going to start your pin tuck, and then just start slowly. Go to where your mark to stop is, and then back up, say two stitches, 1, 2. That'll just hold everything in place. And do just be gentle pulling from your project, because you don't want to put too much pressure on that double twin needle. And trim that off. And there you go with your second. I'm going to turn this light off and see if that doesn't help. There we go. And oop. And there it is. I think you can see that there's the pearl cotton is in there, and from the front, and that foot just keeps everything straight, perfect, marvelous. The starch adds a nice amount of stability. Okay, so back to the original edit. I have only finished the first 3, but there are 2 things that I wanted to say. As I was stitching, I thought of 2 pieces of information that you might want. The first one is, if you don't lock and you wish that you had locked these top stitches, you can just simply tie these in a knot. You should have, if you're doing twin needle stitching, 2 pieces of thread, and then 1 extra piece of thread and a piece of pearl cotton, and you can just split that into 2 and 2, and then tie a knot like you would normally tie a knot. Just a half knot and then another half knot to finish it off, like so, and then trim your threads. The second thing is, in another attempt to remind us all that we do not want to hit this with the iron until we have removed these ink marks, which, by the way, are slowly disappearing like they're supposed to. But if you don't want to hit this with an iron to press that line between the top marking and the dot, you can use your fingernail if you've got strong fingernails, or you can use something that you use when you're scoring. So if you've got, I have a point turner. It's a wooden point turner, but it also has this beveled edge back here that I can use to kind of gently push on fabric to create seams, and I'll show you that, or fold lines I mean, that will not cause issues with ironing ink into your fabric. So let's mark the next set quickly. Need to make sure everything is lined up just like it was before. That inch of fabric, top to bottom, all nice and lined up, and we're on the right side as we should be. Okay. And then I'm just going to mark where my needle would be going straight down the center. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And then on the medium circle, I'm going to put 3 pins. There are 2 on each of these, but visually I just need 1. So I don't have to put 2 marks on the fabric. I'm just going to use 1. I don't know if you can see that. I'll try to zoom in where you can. Ish. Okay. Alright. So there's 2 dots for this one, there's 2 dots for this one, and 2 dots for this one. And I'm just using 1 dot to mark. So now that I've got those pins, I can bring my fabric up to the pins where they're located on the back of the pattern piece of fabric. Right in here, there should be 1. And I don't know if you can tell, but they are at an angle, 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to mark the first one right here, just where I can see the pin. I'll move it up just a little bit to get to this one there, and then up just a little bit to get to this one right there. So this has to sit for a while so that all of this ink is gone before I can hit it with an iron. But I can press these 2 guys because they are fine. So I'll take care of that real quick, and I will iron this once all the ink has disappeared, and then we're going to start the putting together process. I am almost 100% positive that I can do that even if the lace part has not been inserted. I'll have to kind of go forward, and today's not a good day, now that I think about it, for me to even think about making weird off-the-wall decisions, because apparently that will blow up in my face. So that'll be for another day when the lace shows up. I'm sure this is an odd place for this video, but I wanted to show you guys that I did actually get a system for my little camera. This is the big camera up here. But I'm going to have to switch them because obviously I have a remote for the big camera, and this screen pops out so I can see it if it's over there, and I can use the remote to focus. However, my little camera is not on a remote and won't be situated in a way that I can actually see the screen, which obviously is absolutely opposite of me. So what I decided to do is switch big camera positioning. I haven't done it yet because I need help. This one weighs too much for me to manipulate, and they clamp to my table, both of them. Sorry about the mess and the wires and all of that. But if I put this camera right here where that camera is right now, and that camera where this camera is right now, I think I will have a working system so that you guys will be able to see this area when I'm sewing. Anyway, that is my plan. And the next coming up portion of the series will be putting the insertion lace into these pieces. That will be in the next video. I've already edited this one, so I thought I would just go ahead and end it and get it up so that you guys will be able to see what's happening, figure it out if you want to do this pattern. And the next video, of course, being insertion lace, will kind of be a big thing. If you've never done it before, it's very simple, very easy to do. But I want to kind of start that one in a separate video. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. The last couple of months, I've had so many subscribers join, and I appreciate it so much. I hope you're having a great August. This is August the 2nd, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.